In a dramatic and heartbreaking turn of events on the bold and the beautiful, Luna Nozawa, the once bright, innocent designer at Forrester Creations, was sentenced to 30 years in jail. The judge's gavel struck down with finality, leaving the audience in complete stillness. The room's collective gasp reflected the pain on everyone's faces, but none more so than RJ's, whose whole world appeared to collapse in front of him. Her mother Poppy sobbed violently from the gallery as the woman he loved, the one he believed in despite all the scandals and accusations, was taken away in handcuffs with tears streaming down her cheeks. The woman who had previously played the victim, Electra, stood up before the judge could adjourn and unleashed 5 devastating revelations that not only destroyed Luna's life, but also threatened to upend everything the Forresters, Logans, and Finnegans believed they knew about one another. If the verdict itself was shocking, the moments that followed made it clear that this was only the beginning of a darker, more complicated truth. Electra's voice, firm, cold, and shaking solely from the weight of what she was about to reveal, sliced through the tension like a sword as the murmurs echoed through the courtroom. She revealed the first shocking fact right away: Luna's accident that caused the catastrophe at Forrester wasn't an accident at all. Electra asserted that she had security footage, tapes, and texts proving Luna had communicated with an unidentified accomplice within the Forrester offices who assisted her in manipulating files and designs to obtain an advantage in the fashion competition that ended so tragically. Even though nobody thought Luna would ever resort to sabotage, Electra's statements had the sting of legitimacy since she mentioned specific names: Zend Forrester Dominguez. As Electra accused Zend of aiding Luna in return for information on RJ and Steffi's private family business, the courtroom erupted in gasps. Even Zend, who was sitting calmly in the back, was stunned, and his gaze shifted to Ridge and Brooke, who were exchanging shocked looks. The ramifications were profound. If Zend's involvement were confirmed, it would destroy the already shaky trust within the Forrester family, in addition to redefining Luna's acts as deliberate dishonesty. Brooke muttered, "This can't be happening," as Ridge's jaw tightened and his hands gripped the bench in front of him. The second, much more deadly reality then emerged. Electra disclosed that Luna and RJ had a relationship that was based on deceit from the start. She asserted that Poppy had pushed her daughter to date RJ, not out of love but rather as part of a bigger plan to gain power and money at Forrester Creations. Electra said she told her to use him, as she fixed her gaze on Poppy, whose cries transformed into terrified denial. The words struck RJ like a bolt of lightning. It was never love, it was leverage. His recollections of Luna, their whispered vows, their laughing, and their hopes, flashed before him and then broke like glass. Though uncertainty gnawed at his heart, he wanted to yell that it wasn't true and that Luna's tears had always been genuine. With a shaking voice, Poppy pleaded with Electra to stop, accusing her of lying, but Electra's icy demeanor told everyone she had no reason to back down. Weeks before to the controversy, she claimed to have overheard Poppy use those exact words during a furious dispute in the Forrester design studio. With a whip-like voice, Ridge jerked his head in Poppy's direction and asked, "Is that true?" Poppy, however, was unable to respond. Her silence was a powerful statement. Given that it altered Luna's identity, the third discovery was arguably the most brutal of all. When Electra revealed that Luna was not Poppy's biological daughter, the entire courtroom was struck in shock. The court urged order as the muttering intensified, but Electra persisted. She submitted a paper claiming that Luna's birth records had been sealed at an old San Francisco medical clinic. The reality, she said, was that Luna had been secretly adopted by Poppy after her biological mother, a member of the Spencer family, had paid Poppy to raise her out of the spotlight. If confirmed, Luna's relationship with the Forresters was blood-related rather than merely amorous or professional. Electra said, "She's a Spencer. If you don't believe that, consider her DNA findings." "Why do you suppose she didn't take the test?" when the police asked. Bill Spencer, who had been sitting calmly in the back of the courtroom, looked up abruptly, his face going pale. He muttered, "That's not possible," but he had a gut feeling that he should know. Everything that had transpired was made even more tragic by the prospect that Luna might be related to his family in some way through blood, and the weight of what Electra had let loose made the room feel oppressive. Her fourth revelation struck even more deeply at the core of Forrester Creations. The designs Luna displayed in her last showcase before being arrested, which were widely praised as her best work, were not hers, according to Electra. Electra claimed that Luna had taken them from a secret folder that belonged to Hope Logan. She said that Luna had obtained the digital files and discreetly changed Hope's new line concept, which was intended to relaunch the Hope for the Future brand, before passing them off as her own. Hope's face went white as she turned to face Ridge, unable to understand how someone who had once been her mentor could have betrayed her in such a manner. Luna's entire career at Forrester had been based on lies, if this discovery were accurate. When Electra continued, "You all saw her as a rising star, but I saw the truth," her voice faltered a little. The courtroom was filled with incredulity and indignation, but the seeds of doubt had been sown, and in the soap opera industry, doubt is frequently more damaging than evidence. She wasn't rising, she was stealing her way to the top. The fifth and last revelation followed, which not only ruined Luna's life, but also had an impact on every family on the program. Electra asserted that intentional emotional manipulation, in addition to carelessness, was the cause of the unborn child's death, the accident that ultimately determined Luna's fate. She claimed that Luna had been aware of her pregnancy and had kept it a secret from everyone, including RJ, while still using medicines to treat her anxiety. Electra claimed that Luna, well aware of the narcotic impact of Poppy's mints, had taken a dose of them to help her relax on the night of the crash. The penalty appeared to be divine justice rather than human retribution once it was discovered that Luna's own activities may have contributed to her miscarriage and the threat to others. Realizing that he might never see Luna again and that their love had been marred by lies and deceit, RJ broke down in tears. Finn, who had previously guarded Luna as family, sat still, trying to make peace with the woman he had attempted to shield with the recently painted painting by Electra. Chaos broke out as the judge yelled for order. As Ridge turned to Steffi and whispered that this may permanently ruin Forrester's reputation, Poppy fell to the ground and sobbed Luna's name. Holding Hope's hand tightly, Brooke's eyes were filled with astonishment and sadness, as though they were witnessing a reenactment of history, another young woman brought down by ambition and secrets. Electra remained steadfast, her face impassive, her triumph vacuous but calculated. It was obvious that she had revealed these facts to guarantee Luna's complete demise rather than for publicity or atonement. But even as she stood there was a glimmer of empathy in her eyes that betrayed her generally icy exterior and hinted guilt. Because she secretly realized that she had sentenced herself in addition to destroying Luna. There was an instant media frenzy outside the courthouse. Reporters descended, microphones flashing, headlines yelling. Electra reveals hidden lies. Forrester designer sentenced to 30 years. RJ's smile was flat as he stepped into his car and brushed by cameras without saying anything. When Poppy fainted, Finn followed her to the hospital, divided between his commitment to his wife Steffi, who was now angry with him for always standing up for Luna, and his role as a doctor. As Ridge and Brooke debated whether to make a public statement late into the night in the Forrester mansion, Hope sat silently by the fireplace, reliving all of her memories of Luna and wondering where it all went wrong. In the meantime, Bill Spencer called privately and gave his staff instructions to confirm Electra's claim regarding Luna's ancestry. He wanted to know if there was even a remote possibility that Luna was his blood, because if it was, the Forresters had just sentenced Spencer to 30 years in prison. That night, Luna sat by herself in her cell, her thoughts racing as the cold metal bed pressed against her back. The cuffs were still hurting her wrists, and she kept thinking about the judge's words, 30 years. She was more troubled by Electra's 5 truths, though. Falsehoods and twisted half-truths intended to harm her were among them. Others were on the verge of actuality. Although she never intended to hurt anyone, she had in fact taken one of her mother's medications that evening. Once, she had evaded a DNA test, but not because she was afraid of being exposed, but rather because Poppy had pleaded with her not to, afraid of what it would show. Regarding her designs, Luna was aware that although she had taken ideas from Hope's vault, she had used them to create something unique. Nevertheless, She was guilty in the eyes of the law and the world, and Electra had ensured that no one would ever trust her again. The consequences only got worse in the days that followed. While Ridge contemplated whether to permanently remove the Nozawa brand from any future designs, Steffi insisted that Forrester launch an internal probe to clear their name. Meanwhile, Poppy descended into despair as her guilt over her part in everything blended with her grief. There was a mystery about Luna's birth, she admitted with tears when Finn paid her a visit at the hospital. She had taken the baby from a lady who didn't want her, but she had reared her as her own because she couldn't bear to see her left behind. Poppy sobbed, "Finn, she's not evil. No matter what blood says, she's my daughter." Finn clutched her hand and vowed to find a way to find out, but he was aware that it might be too late. One evening back at the prison, Luna got an envelope with no return address. One picture, a baby snapshot of her wrapped in a hospital blanket, was inside, along with a note that said, "You deserve to know who you are." She gasped when she saw the name, Luna Spencer. Her breath paused for a second. Electra might have been correct all along. Was her whole existence a fabrication designed to save someone's honor? She started crying when she understood that her narrative was just getting started, even if she was incarcerated. Electra herself, meanwhile, was not at all at ease following her legal triumph. The consequences of her actions weighed heavily on her when she gazed at her reflection in her hotel room that evening. Luna had been destroyed by the 5 truths she had let loose. But at what price? Because the darkest of all was the 6th truth, which she had kept hidden from everyone. She had once loved Luna as if she were a sister. They had the same desire to establish themselves, as well as similar dreams and sorrows. But that bond had been poisoned by betrayal and jealousy, until the only emotion she felt was revenge. Now that Luna was imprisoned and her name was cleared, Electra felt empty. She felt even more alone after the victory that she had thought would provide closure. Los Angeles would remember what transpired in that courtroom for weeks to come. Tragic events, treachery, and the steep cost of ambition would all be associated with the name Luna Nozawa, or possibly Luna Spencer. Unable to let the outside world define how he should feel, RJ started going to see her in secret. He put his palm to hers and said, "I still believe you," through the jail visiting room's glass. Luna's slight smile was a mixture of sadness and optimism. "And I'll find out the truth." The true puppet master behind it all, the one who had given Electra her information and who had planned Luna Nozawa's downfall, was somewhere in the shadows, content that the mayhem had only just started. Because no penalty is ever really the end in the bold and the beautiful, and no secret remains hidden forever. Within the drab tedium of the prison, where Luna's world had shrunk to frigid cement walls, the distant echo of guards' footsteps, and the oppressive silence that followed lights out, days stretched into weeks. But even in that deafening silence, her thoughts would not stop. She reenacted the courtroom incident every night, including the gavel, Electra's scathing voice, RJ's shattered face, and her mother's frantic tears. 30 years later, the words lingered in her head like an unbreakable curse. Now, however, she had a new focus, a truth she had to discover, with a picture of Luna Spencer concealed under her mattress. If she was actually related to the Spencers, her incarceration was the product of a long history of secrets rather than a single error. Luna promised to fight for her identity even if she wasn't yet able to fight for her freedom. RJ was unraveling on the outside. Every sketch he made changed into Luna's face as he tried to resume his job at Forrester Creations. Late one evening in the design office, Ridge finally confronted his son after noticing his unfocused behavior. "You have to accept what happened, son," Ridge remarked in an empathetic voice. "You cannot allow her to ruin you as well." RJ abruptly turned against him, his eyes blazing with defiance. "Dad, you don't know her. You are unaware of Electra's actions." Brooke slipped in, putting a hand on her son's shoulder and said, "She twisted everything." "Love can sometimes make us blind to the truth, sweetheart." RJ shook his head, seeming almost begging. His remarks pierced them, and for the first time, Brooke was at a loss for words. Or maybe you're all too afraid to admit you were wrong about her. She had witnessed the heartache, the bewilderment, the destruction in Luna's eyes that day, and a tiny voice inside of her questioned whether Electra's truths were all there was to it. In the meantime, Electra's meticulously maintained poise started to falter. She was only reminded of the price of the celebrity she believed she desired by the interviews, magazine covers, and unexpected invites to prestigious design panels. Every camera flash seemed like a charge. She would awaken in a cold sweat at night, picturing Luna's shaky voice and the betrayed expression in her eyes when the verdict was announced. Despite her agent's advice to take advantage of the publicity and ride the wave, Electra was unable to do so. An unseen guilt that no amount of celebrity could erase was withering away inside her. She whispered to herself in the mirror as she was getting ready for a high-profile interview one afternoon about her courage in revealing the truth. Her reflection stared back at her, unblinking, as though daring her to reveal what she had buried, that at least one of her 5 startling revelations had been a lie. After seeing Luna's personal sketchbook in the design area, she altered one of the messages that connected Luna to the alleged sabotage, putting evidence in Zen's name. It was not intended to destroy Luna, but to teach her a lesson. However, an innocent woman was now imprisoned as a result of that deception. Poppy was no longer herself when she returned to the Forrester estate. The carefree woman who used to talk in riddles about energy and love now spent hours at the piano playing gentle tunes that reflected her sorrow. She gave Finn an antique journal with mysterious notes concerning Luna's birth when he came to visit. "It's my only remaining option," she whispered. As Finn flipped through the pages, he stopped when he saw an entry from more than 2 decades ago. The mother returned tonight. She claimed that she needed to keep her baby safe and that she couldn't do it. I vowed to keep her secret safe. Finn glanced up sternly. Who is the mother? Poppy had tears welling up in her eyes. Her name escapes me. But Finn persisted, feeling that this secret identity may not only establish Luna's innocence, but also link to the very foundation of the Spencer Empire. I made a vow. Following his departure, Poppy sobbed uncontrollably and muttered, I apologize, Luna. Before it was too late, I ought to have told you the truth. Bill Spencer, elsewhere, was working on his own personal inquiry. Every medical record from the clinic Electra described was retrieved by his team. One of his detectives finally discovered a match after days of searching, a baby girl born under a false name around the same time as Luna's purported birth, with the mother identified only as Edie. When he saw the initials, Bill grimaced. Edie? With his instincts kicking in, he mumbled, Electra Davis. Is that an option? Is it possible that Electra and Luna are related in a more complex way than just an adversary or victim? Although it sounded crazy, the theory clarified Electra's compulsive need to destroy her. Bill made the decision to speak with her face-to-face and set up a private meeting while pretending it was a press interview. He didn't spend any time in welcoming her to his office. Explain to me, Electra, he began in a cool but stern voice. What precisely is your relationship to Luna Nozawa? Or rather, Luna Spencer? Electra froze, her face losing color. What are you discussing? Her voice trembled as she whispered. The clinic record was apparent when Bill slid the file across the desk. I am aware of the reality. A child was given up by you 20 years ago. The initials and the dates coincide. The fact that Luna harmed you did not cause you to destroy her. She is yours. Therefore you destroyed her.